Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Laura Prada from the Telesur studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. And a new migrant caravan has set off from Honduras, destined for the United States. The new group departed from the city of San Pedro Sula. Migrants say they are leaving because they no longer have the means to live and are doing so in spite of government's campaign of intimidation. For an update of the situation, we contact our correspondent Hilda Silvestrucci.
More and more Honduran people are arriving here, at the border with Guatemala. Just moments ago, minors that were accompanied by only one of their parents were not allowed to cross the border. Others in the caravan have also reported that authorities are asking for passports, even though there is an agreement among Central American countries that says that only one personal document is required for minors to cross with their parents. Around 100 children are currently in this border area, waiting for the final resolution by migrant authorities.
And more than 500 Hondurans met in a bus station to begin their journey to the United States. Let's find out more on the following story.
Entire families have once again decided to leave Honduras due to the crisis in the country.
There are simply no jobs. We do not have access to food every day. So that is why me and my wife took the decision of migrating. We cannot find a job here.
There is a lot of violence. Children are threatened by gangs to join them. We cannot go on like this.
Young people say there are no job opportunities, and violence also makes them choose to leave their homeland.
I worked for 1 week in order to collect money and leave the country.
Parents decided to travel with their children due to a lack of basic goods.
We don't have medicine in hospitals. There's nothing to treat my kids when they get sick. I want my son to have a good future. That's what I'm looking for.
People gathered at the bus station said no one organized this. Instead, they knew about the meeting thanks to social media. They also said they are willing to move forward until the end because they feel they have been deceived by the Honduran government.
Juan Orlando Hernandez lied to us when we voted for him. He said young people would have jobs, but that never happened. So that is why we are here all together, to leave the country.
As it happened with the first migrant caravan, it is expected that more people will join the group along the way until they reach the Guatemalan border. People in this caravan have not yet decided which way they will take to get out of the country. Although they assume the way is militarized, they say they are confident about reaching their destiny.
Hilda Silvestrucci, Telesur, Honduras.
And in other matters, supporters of a second Brexit referendum are celebrating Theresa May's defeat in Parliament. Hundreds of people gather outside the British Parliament to follow the vote carrying United Kingdom and European Union flags. They cheered and celebrated the outcome. They say the people need to vote on Brexit again. Members of Parliament rejected May's withdrawal agreement with the European Union by 432 votes to 202.
She lost by a huge number, far more than was predicted, and if she had got any sense whatsoever, then she would have not gone through that palaver. She would have just said, I will revoke Article 50. But she wouldn't. She's only interested in her own future and the Conservative Party.
It was a resounding victory. We're very glad that the deal was voted down. Personally, I would have preferred the Parliament to have taken back control and have revoked Article 50. But I'm very happy. This is a first step. We need to have a people's vote. There needs to be a choice on the ballot paper between remain in the EU and Theresa May's deal.
The Prime Minister's defeat in Parliament is being described as the biggest ever suffered by a government in British history. The vote saw Brexit supporting Conservatives joining with the opposition parties. After the result, May acknowledged her setback.
It is clear that the House does not support this deal, but tonight's vote tells us nothing about what it does support. Nothing about how, nothing about how or even if it intends to honour the decision the British people took in a referendum Parliament decided to hold. And people, particularly EU citizens who've made their home here, and UK citizens living in the EU, deserve clarity on these questions as soon as possible.
And there is now a great uncertainty about what will happen next. Most opposition parties want the government to suspend Article 50, which would then postpone the United Kingdom's exit from the European Union beyond the current date of March 29. The Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, has tabled a motion of no confidence in the government, which will be voted on this Wednesday. This could trigger an early general election, but it's not clear whether Parliament would support that.
The results of tonight's vote is the greatest defeat for a government since the 1920s in this House. This is a catastrophic defeat for this government. After 2 years of failed negotiations, the House of Commons has delivered its verdict on her Brexit deal, and that verdict is absolutely decisive. I hear the words of the Prime Minister, but actions of her government of the past 2 years speak equally clearly. She is only attempting to reach out now to try to keep her failed process and deal alive after it's been so roundly rejected by Parliament on behalf of the people of this country. Labour has laid out our priorities consistently. No deal must be taken off the table. A permanent customs union must be secured, and people's rights and protections must be guaranteed so they do not fall behind.
Let's back to United Kingdom, where the Prime Minister's Brexit deal has suffered a resounding defeat in Parliament. Our correspondent in London, Pablo Navarrete, brings us more about what this means for the nation.
A short moment ago, it was announced that British Prime Minister Theresa May had lost a crucial vote on the Brexit deal between her government and the European Union in the British Parliament. The magnitude of the loss, 230 votes, was perhaps larger than expected by some, but it was clear that she did not have the support within her own party to win this. Now, this vote was delayed from December, where she, at the last minute, decided to pull it or postpone it, given that, again, it didn't seem that she had the votes to win. She claimed that she would try to win further concessions from the European Union, something that she was unsuccessful with. And now her credibility as leader, her government effectively is on the ropes. Now, the Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, has announced that he will be putting in a motion of no confidence in the government tomorrow. And depending on how this plays out, it could lead to the fall of the Theresa May government. So this new vote has plunged the government into a renewed crisis. And a short moment ago, the Donald Tusk, the European Union president, gave a tweet indicating that Britons should perhaps think about cancelling Brexit altogether, which is, there is also a strong move, especially amongst Labour Party, Labour MPs and some Conservative MPs, for what they call a people's referendum, something that the Labour leadership has not supported overtly, although there is a kind of more nuanced position that is put forward. So this will be tested now in the coming days. Labour will be expected to be a little bit clearer in what its position is now that Theresa May has lost the key vote on Brexit. And Theresa May said she will give a announcement tomorrow as well. So the expected loss by Theresa May has occurred. Her government is on the ropes, and we'll see if Theresa May makes it till the end of the week as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
I receive you. Time for a break here at From the South. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and my personal account at Laura P. Telesur. Stay with us.
When I say UT, you say LA, UT.
And we are back. In Venezuela, the President Nicolas Maduro has held a meeting with the General Staff of the National Bolivarian Armed Forces prior to the year's first Military Exercises Soberania 2019, marking the bicentennial of the Angostura Congress led by Simón Bolívar in 1819. The meeting took place at the Ministry of Defense. Preparations for the military exercises order on January 10th were verified. Maduro had previously overseen the strategic design of the exercises, which will take place in February. They will involve social organizations as well as the National Bolivarian Militia.
The military civil operations bicentenary of Angostura for the integral defense of the nation will be led on February 10th and 5th of 2019. Preparations begin in all of the 8 regions of integral defense and in the 24 integral defense zones in each of the 4 components and with 1,600,000 militias.
For their part, and in the context of the preparations for the Military Exercise Soberania 2019, the Minister for Defense of Venezuela, Vladimir Padrino Lopez, reiterated the loyalty of the National Armed Force to the constitutional mandate of President Nicolas Maduro.
We are in the court of honor of the military college to fulfill and reaffirm our loyalty to acknowledge President Maduro's lawful constitutional legal position as President and Commander-in-Chief for the next period, and also to swear again and reaffirm our oath to the motherland.
In other topics, a Guatemalan mother has condemned the criminalization of her partner, a land rights activist who fled to the United States and is now in jail. We have more on the following story.
This is the abandoned bed of Maria Choc's 11-year-old child. The boy and Maria's partner, Arturo Koch Choc, are currently detained in the United States. Arturo is an indigenous activist wanted by Guatemalan police.
When night comes, my sadness does as well. So what I do is come and see the bed, but it's empty. I'm in great pain.
A few centimeters from the bed, the arrested migrant left a scarce amount of corn, evidence of the inequality these people face in regards to access to land, a problem that affects the community of Muxvila in the municipality of Raxruja, Alta Verapaz.
This community is preserving the native forest, stopping logging practices. Therefore, we only have a small area to grow corn, just enough for one harvest.
People say that Arturo Koch migrated because he was feeling attacked. He is part of a list of 52 people with arrest warrants due to the accusation of French citizen who lives in the region.
Está siendo perseguido por la ley.
He's been persecuted by the law, not for being a thief, not for being a criminal. He's been persecuted for a simple reason, for defending Mother Nature, the land that we have today.
Indigenous authorities suspect that French citizen Daniel Andreu Dreux, with whom they have an old dispute of land, must have alerted U.S. authorities about the migration of Arturo Koch Choc.
Las influencias de este.
Friends of Daniel Andreu Dreux sent a copy of the arrest warrant to Interpol in order to imprison our friend, who is in a U.S. jail.
According to reports received by the family, Arturo Koch Choc is in Buena Vista, Texas. His 11-year-old son, meanwhile, is in New York.
Also in Guatemala, the chief of the Commission Against Impunity, Ivan Velázquez, has ordered the resign of Guatemala's allowed body to remain in the country. In early January, President Jimmy Morales expelled the organization which was investigating him and members of his family. The decision was later overturned by the Constitutional Court. And the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean unveiled their annual report, Social Panorama 2018 in Chile. The investigation reflects an increase in extreme poverty in the region. Research was carried out taking into consideration functional inequality, social expenditure, and labor and social inclusion. This facilitates an estimate projection on poverty and extreme poverty. The report stated that in 2018, poverty dropped to 29.6%, which is equivalent to 182 million people, 2 million less than in 2017. However, the extreme poverty rate remains at 10.2%, or 63 million people, which is 1 million more than in 2017.
In which cases do we have to look at extreme poverty carefully in Central America? Honduras, for example, is one of the countries where extreme poverty has increased, causing migration. This is because people don't have access to labor, income, or social service.
Time for a second break. More news when we are back.
The left in Latin America has been a huge inspiration, has been achieved as a result of the democratic Bolivarian revolution that swept across Latin America, is significant. Improvements in the living standards, some of the challenges which have been overcome are a huge source of inspiration from Venezuela through to Ecuador and Bolivia and Argentina and the rest. You know, there's been huge. Brazil as well under the Workers' Party, under Lula and Dilma Rousseff. The key for me is not remaining inside the European Union. The key is electing a government that's committed to redistribution. I mean, Britain is the 5th biggest economy in the world at the moment. If with a policy of redistribution, we ensure that the income that's generated by the economy was shared more equitably, we could raise the living standards of the 99% of the public in this country. One of the things that we also need to recognise is that the forces of conservatism are ever present and will take any opportunity to try and row back from and indeed actually demolish many of the improvements that have been brought about by the left in Latin America. We see what's happening in Brazil right now as an example of that.
Jamaican hotel giant Sandals is pulling out of a planned multi-million-dollar project in Trinidad and Tobago. The decision comes amid bad publicity surrounding the venture over its potential environmental impact. Some marine scientists warned that the proposed Tobago project would pose a threat to the nearby Bon Accord Lagoon and the mangrove forest. The planned 750-room resort was said to be one of Sandals' biggest investments. The Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has signed a decree to roll back a 2003 gun control law. The law sets strict conditions on gun ownership, as it prohibits permits that are allowed in other countries like the United States. Bolsonaro has also pledged to lower the age for gun ownership from 25 to 21 and to scrap a police requirement that asks for proof of why a weapon needs to be owned. With the latest reactions of what this new measure costs, we have a report from our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Brian Meyer.
In Brasilia this morning, President Jair Bolsonaro issued a decree liberalizing gun ownership in Brazil. Whereas previously, the only people who could purchase guns for personal use were public security officials, and then only after they'd passed an examination and received personal authorization from a federal police agent. Now, any Brazilian citizen who lives in an area that had over 10 homicides per 100,000 residents in the previous year can purchase up to 4 guns for personal use. Now, this measure is wildly unpopular with the Brazilian public. A recent poll by Datafolha shows that 68% of the population opposes the measure because Brazil already has one of the world's highest murder rates. Last year, there were 62,000 murders in Brazil. But As the gun companies are big supporters of Bolsonaro and his PSL political party, they applauded the measure, and the share values of Taurus, which is the largest gun company in Brazil, dramatically increased with Bolsonaro's decree. Brian Mir, Telesur, São Paulo.
And thousands of people have taken part in several Spanish feminist mobilizations against a regional governmental pact with the far right. Protests took place in over 100 Spanish cities against the pact made by the right-wing forces with the far-right Vox party to gain the Andalusian government against the Socialist Party. Organizers argue that women's rights will be compromised if the far-right enters the government. Our correspondent Sergio Rodriguez with the latest.
Thousands of people rallied in front of the Andalusian parliament against the far-right forming a coalition government. More than 150 organizations from all over Andalusia demonstrated here. Protests are also taking place in cities across Spain. These demonstrations reject the coalition between the Conservative Popular Party and the Citizens Party with the far-right Vox Party. Vox has repeatedly called for scrapping domestic violence laws and the promotion of LGBT equality. Organizations are demanding an end to fascism in institutions. Vox will support the formation of a conservative government with 12 seats in parliament. On Tuesday, the Popular Party candidate will be giving a speech in parliament. On Wednesday, there will be a debate and a vote to make him the Andalusian president as protests continue.
And the Southern African Development Community has called for an emergency meeting to discuss the disputed presidential elections in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The news comes after a court in Kinshasa began hearing an appeal challenging the results announced last week. Opposition candidate Martin Fayulu challenged the results that gave victory to Felix Tshisekedi in the December elections. Like this, we've come to the end of this news brief, but you can visit our website, telesurenglish.net, where you can find more news, opinion articles, or special interviews. Continue with Telesur, connecting the Global South. Until next time, thank you for watching.